Correct.
Question number 11, the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Housing. What action is the government taking to make housing more affordable?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, the most important action this government's taken is to manage the economy well during a difficult period. This includes less tax, putting more money in people's back pockets to pay their mortgage, and a sustained period of low interest rates, making home ownership more affordable for Kiwis. We've also changed the Building Act and the Resource Management Act to remove unnecessary red tape, and we've increased the Welcome Home loan caps since we've been in government. In fact, 7,500 people have bought their first home using the scheme. Total value of borrowing $1 billion. That's an awful lot of first home buying.
The Honourable Annette King.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Is he aware there is now a housing crisis in Christchurch, with agents saying last week it's impossible to find rental accommodation? If so, how many of the over 600 Housing New Zealand rental houses currently boarded up with no decision made to repair or rebuild them could be made available to help relieve the growing housing problem?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, the member may not be aware, but there is a red zone in Canterbury where a large number of those 600 houses are. The government's made it pretty clear, and residents made it pretty clear, they want to shift out of them. If she suggests that we should leave state house tenants in the red zone but everyone else get moved to safety, I don't know where this Labour Party is going.
The Honourable Annette King. Point of order.
That answer was most unnecessary. I didn't raise the red zone. I asked about 600 houses and asked how many of them could be used and made available for people where there's a housing shortage in Christchurch. It didn't warrant that answer or the attack on the Labour Party and what we thought about the red zone.
Well, I'll hear the Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, I made it clear that many of those houses are in the red zone.
Order. The Minister's answer, I accept, was somewhat more aggressive perhaps than necessary, but he did indicate that he said the majority of those 600 houses are in the red zone, and that's why they wouldn't be used. And the member has the chance to pursue the matter further, pursue that answer further with further supplementary questions. Honourable Annette King.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Has Jerry Brownlee raised with him the problem faced by an 85-year-old Christchurch Housing New Zealand tenant who's been told to vacate her temporary accommodation on Saturday with no accommodation offered by Housing New Zealand, and with her family finding it impossible to even contact the department? And if so, what action has he taken to assist this woman?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, it hasn't taken Jerry Brownlee to tell me of that particular case. I am aware of it, and so is Housing New Zealand. There is no doubt that there are significant housing issues in Canterbury, but it would be fair to say, Mr Speaker, that over the last 12 months, the pressure on Housing New Zealand tenants, the way that they've been managed, shifted to alternative accommodation, has caused very little political or actual noise at all, and Housing New Zealand's done an excellent job.
Just before I call the next question, I thought the question asked what was done about this particular case. The Minister has acknowledged that he's familiar with, and given the nature of the Minister's answer, perhaps he could have said what was being done for this person, since he's familiar with it. Now, Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I was asked if Jerry Brownlee had told me about it, and I started my question with that, but I'm happy to develop the answer if you'd like me to.
Point of order, the Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, I asked if Jerry Brownlee had raised it and what he had done about it, if it had been raised, and in his answer he said he was aware of it, so he could have told us.
Order. I accept that people are interjecting when they shouldn't. On my right here, when a point of order is being considered, one could technically argue it's two questions, and had the Minister been absolutely 100% helpful in his answering of these supplementary questions, I might have ruled differently. But given the fairly aggressive answers have been given, I'll ask the Minister to provide the further information. What has he done to assist these people, or this person? The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I've been assured that Housing New Zealand are looking at the case. They look at many hundreds, if not thousands of cases. I'm not completely up to speed where that one is at the moment. I think if the member gets permission for me to release the details on that particular woman, perhaps I'll look at providing her a detailed response.
Jian Yang.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. What recent reports has the Minister seen regarding home affordability?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I've seen a report as recently as this morning by Massey University's Real Estate Analysis Unit stating that in the 3 months ending February, the national affordability measure has improved even more. According to the report, falling house prices, rising wages and falling mortgage interest rates have all combined to make housing its most affordable in 8 years.
Point of order, the Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table the said report that the Minister has just mentioned, which goes on to say...
Which report is this?
This is the Home Affordability Report from Massey University, which goes on to say that there is demand causing pressure in the housing market, particularly in Auckland and Christchurch.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Rino Titakasini.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, what reports has he received on affordability and overcrowding in Christchurch? For example, 11 people crowded into a 2-bedroom house, or people renting a garage to live in for $160 a week, or the young man sleeping in his car when he's not delivering pizzas because he can't afford the rental or find a place to live.
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I am aware of some of those media reports. I think opposition members need to realise that, yes, there is housing pressure. There are housing pressures in Canterbury due to the earthquake, but they should also remember that when we sent up a temporary accommodation, whether in the form of caravans or the units that are very successful in Kapoi and Linwood now, the opposition parties attacked that and opposed it. So they can't have it both ways, Mr Speaker.
Hone Harawira.
Why did the government get rid of the Rural Housing Fund, leaving more than 7,000 Taitokero households without the badly needed renovations that had been approved under the fund?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Because, Mr Speaker, we decided to put that amount of money plus some into the development of new housing, particularly Papa Kaianga housing on multiple owned Maori land or other land that Maori and iwi use. That fund's been very successful. We figured that new houses, well insulated and well designed, is much better than patching up roofs that are leaking, roofs that are rusting, houses that are uninsulated and rotting, which is what happened under the previous Labour government.
The Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, has he got his priorities right when he has Housing New Zealand restructuring their services at a cost of $80 million, getting $80 million, getting rid of staff and overspending their transformation project budget by $8 million so far, when you have a woman in Christchurch who cannot get a house from Housing New Zealand, and to this moment nothing has been done by them? Where is this better service?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, Housing New Zealand provides almost 70,000 houses across the New Zealand. That's 70,000 families. Actually, that's 220,000 people. That is a huge commitment. The fact that they're increasing housing supply in places like Auckland is the right direction. The idea, like under previous governments where you had one person rattling around in a 4-bedroom house, entertaining gangs in state houses, all those things are being put behind us. I believe Housing New Zealand's heading in the right direction.
Question. Supplementary question, is it? Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Speaker, will the government regulate the exploding home rental increases in Christchurch?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I refer the member to the answer in the House by the Honourable Jerry Brownlee in recent weeks.
Oh no, order. I think that's unreasonable to refer a member to an answer in the House in recent weeks. I mean, the Minister is the Minister of Housing. He has responsibility for Housing New Zealand. and I think he should answer the question. The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, point of order, Mr Speaker. I don't think he was particularly asking about Housing New Zealand, but I'm prepared to. I think he was talking about the rental market generally.
I apologise, the Minister. That is, the question did ask indeed about the general. It did not specify. To sort this matter out, invite Dennis O'Rourke to repeat his question, because he should have realised that the Minister is not responsible for the general housing market. Dennis O'Rourke. Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston.
Mr Speaker, where does it say that this Minister is not responsible for housing practice, building and construction in this country?
Well, no, I'll hear Phil Heatley first, the Honourable Phil Heatley first.
Can I introduce Winston Peters to the Minister of Building and Construction?
Order. The members, the House will come to order and stop this nonsense. Someone will be leaving very soon unless this is silence. All round. This nonsense will stop. Of course, the Minister is not responsible for markets. And I invite the member, I've not cut out his question, I invite him. I was not happy with the answer the Minister gave. It was not good enough. However, he points out the question went beyond his responsibilities, so I invite the member to repeat his question to make it clearly within the Minister's responsibility, and I expect an answer. Dennis, the Honourable Trevor Mallard, point of order.
May or may not assist the member, and may or may not assist the Minister, but sir, he is the Minister responsible for housing policy.
Order. The member will resume his seat. It's nothing to do with the opposition. Which Minister is responsible for what? That is a government matter. Dennis O'Rourke, supplementary question. I've heard the member sufficiently, and that is not, as far as I'm concerned, it's got nothing to do with the order of this House. I've ruled on the matter, and I'll hear Dennis O'Rourke's supplementary question.
Mr Speaker, the question was, will the government regulate the exploding home rental increases in Christchurch?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, we are not considering that at this time.
Question number 11, Louise Upston. Oh, I beg your pardon, Dennis O'Rourke, supplementary question, I beg your pardon.
Mr Speaker, will the government do anything about the exploding home rental increases in Christchurch?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, the Minister responsible for earthquake recovery announced last week that we're providing more temporary accommodation in Christchurch to provide for supply. Clearly, we've got new developments coming on stream, and we believe that supply will help meet demand and therefore drive down rental and house prices. And that's what our primary objective is, Mr Speaker.
Dennis O'Rourke.
Given that some people forced out of their homes in the red zone in Christchurch cannot afford to buy a replacement home, will the government provide some form of affordable bridging finance to assist them?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, at the moment there's a number of forms of finance that the government does supply. If people were, clearly we're buying people out of housing properties in the red zone where they can take that cheque and buy elsewhere. I'm assured by the Minister of Earthquake Recovery that when he reads the newspaper there are sections and house packages available. We also have the temporary housing villages, Mr Speaker. We have the accommodation supplement. Those seeking rental in Housing New Zealand properties have the income-related rent supplement. Yes, we're open-minded to any other interventions, but at this stage, Mr Speaker, we believe that our progress so far is sufficient. If we need to ramp up, we will.
Supplementary question, Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Speaker, given the growing gap between accommodation allowances and actual rentals in Christchurch, will the government review those allowances?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, those particular allowances are a matter for the Minister of Social Development. I believe that they're passed through her department, so it might be best to put to that Minister.
Question number 11, Louise Upston.
Question number 12.
Oh, 12, I beg your pardon. Question number 12, Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.